One of the things I've learned in all my travels is that it's not the destination that matters, but the journey. From Scotland's North Coast 500 to Australia's Great Ocean Road, the routes I've taken to track down history's greatest stories are often treasures in their own right. Now we're off-road. That's not always the case, though. At one legendary location in Bolivia, a road connects the country's coca farms to the markets of La Paz. And the getting there, as they say, isn't quite so good, because this might just be the most dangerous road on Earth. Buckle up for a journey that begins in Bolivia's Yungas Valley, nestled between the Andes and the Amazon basin. It's hard to tell by looking at these steep cliffs, but for millennia this place has been known for one thing: farming. And today we're meeting two men doing just that.
This is the coca leaf. We're going to pick them up, we're going to farm them, and it's going to be ready for the market.
Coca leaf is the key ingredient in cocaine, a drug that's illegal in most parts of the world. But in Bolivia, the coca leaf is as legal as a maple leaf. Here, it's cultivated for less illicit uses, including the treatment of everything from hunger and headaches to fatigue and, well, more mystical purposes.
So I'm picking these coca leaves for my mom. My mom's a witch. She works in the witch's market. She has a store there.
Twist, Edgar's mother is totally a witch, and not the cool Harry Potter kind. She sells the coca leaf at the witch's market and schools buyers on traditional ways to cure what ails them. But since the market is 65 very mountainous miles away, keeping that tradition alive means taking one hell of a journey. The first challenge farmers here face is simply getting to a road. The valley's so steep that precious few have been built. But luckily, locals have rigged up a solution.
So this is where the real adventure begins. This is the zip line. It's the only connection between the main road and Porfirio's house. He has to use it every day, so it's normal for him. Yeah, exciting for us.
Yeah, or terrifying, depending on how you feel about heights and questionable harnesses. "15 harrowing minutes later, they've made it to the Yungas Road.
Adios.
Be safe. Good luck. Don't fall asleep out there. It's very dangerous.
This is Edgar's driver, Marcos. He's the region's go-to guy for driving coca shipments to the city.
Buena suerte.
And so they're off to see the witch, the wonderful witch of La Paz. Sorry, that's a required joke. And also, I gotta say, the Yungas is no yellow brick road. In fact, this legendary location has earned an iconic name of its own: the Death Road. The Death Road was built in the 1930s by Paraguayan prisoners captured by Bolivia in the deadly Chaco War. Forced to work in enemy territory in brutal conditions, they carved the crude road out of rock. But some locals say they got their revenge by building a route now responsible for as many as 300 deaths a year.
If you don't know the road, you can die here. So that's why you have Marco. He's the best.
Marcos has been driving this route for almost 20 years, and to him, the Death Road is only as dangerous as you make it.
It's a place where you have to basically respect the road, never try to be more than the road.
Edgar and Marcos weave along the cliffs, praying for help, as they pass constant reminders of what makes this road so deadly.
This road is too narrow.
In most places, the road is only 12 feet wide, less than the width of 2 trucks. And with very few guardrails, this is the only place in Bolivia where cars traveling in this direction drive on the left to keep farther away from the 2,000-foot cliffs. But of course, it's not just the narrowness that makes the driving so dicey. Land and mudslides are a common occurrence thanks to the abundant waterfalls. And all the blind curves can be deadly. Especially if your car breaks down.
I'm gonna check quickly because this is not a good place for get stuck.
A broken down car is potentially a death knell here. But luckily, it's just an overheated engine that needs to cool.
It's okay. We could go ahead. We should leave this place.
Edgar and Marcos finally arrive in La Paz with their precious coca cargo, and they head to the city's famed Witches' Market, a legendary location in its own right. From incense and dream catchers to dried frogs and llama fetuses, it's clear that this place puts the ritual back in spiritual.
Hi, Ma. I'm back. Here we have the coca leaves.
Edgar's mom, Yvette, will sell the valuable coca leaves for a variety of medicinal purposes. And when it comes to their more otherworldly uses, well, Yvette's the master. She's a yatiri, a witch doctor of sorts who uses coca leaves like oracles use crystal balls. And since Marcos will be making many more journeys down the death road on her behalf, she offers to look into his future.
No, the coca is saying that you have to remember God. If you believe, everything is going to be good.
For the grand finale, the coca leaves are set aflame. And if Yvette is right, faith might help ensure that future trips down the death road might not be so deadly after all. This Bolivian road is a perfect example of how many of the world's deadliest places are also among the most beautiful. And on the other side of South America, just north of the Amazon River Delta, is another such place, the Salvation Islands, a legendary location immortalized in my favorite Steve McQueen film, Papillon, where a tropical paradise hides the most feared prison in history. It's early morning in French Guiana, a remote section of South America under the jurisdiction of France. 10 miles offshore are the Salvation Islands, the site of the real prison that inspired the story of Papillon. Archaeologist Nicolas Perrault is headed to this legendary location with expert company. Serge Colin, a historian who has spent decades studying the island's dark past.
I'm going to retire soon, and I'm happy to share what I know because the island's history must never be forgotten.
That history started in 1852, when French Emperor Napoleon III decided to turn the untamed territory of Guyana into a penal colony. It was an ideal way to rid France of its worst criminals by stranding them in a barbaric offshore prison, multiple sites that became commonly and collectively referred to as Devil's Island. Think Alcatraz Island, but split in three. Ile Royale housed most of the inmates. Devil's Island was for more dangerous political dissidents. And St. Joseph Island contained a feared prison within a prison, called the reclusion.
The reclusion was the most dreaded side of the prison. To come here was the gateway to death.
The reclusion offers a chilling glimpse at how Salvation treated its inmates. Serge explains that prisoners were sentenced to captivity here for up to 5 years, but few survived beyond 1.
I've heard that the reclusion was also called the man-eater.
Imagine total isolation. No communication was allowed. You're condemned to forced labor and given almost no food. So you could enter here in good health, then leave feet first.
An estimated 80,000 inmates were shipped to the penal colony in its 101 years of operation, yet only a handful ever escaped. Why? Even if you could break out of the concrete cells, you'd need to get past patrolling guards, and then swim through deadly riptides in waters teeming with, you guessed it, sharks. But a select few prisoners did get away. Famously, a writer named Henri Charrière penned a book called Papillon in 1968. It detailed his daring escape from the prison on a coconut raft and was later adapted into a film starring Steve McQueen. But as Serge explains, Henri's story has a few holes in it.
Henri Charrière was in jail, that's true, but records show he escaped from a camp located on the coast of Trinidad, and that he made up the part about escaping from here.
Okay, well, that's a bummer. Turns out based on a true story isn't always what it seems. But the fact is, not many prisoners even attempted escape, because those who tried were punished with a capital P.
So here is the location of the guillotine. Many men were beheaded here, but it was mainly to serve as an example for other prisoners.
Perhaps the island's most insidious form of punishment was psychological. But inside one cell block, Serge reveals a secret, suggesting the inmates' spirits weren't completely broken.
I want to show you something that nobody knows about.
This is one of the solitary confinement cells, where prisoners were locked in cramped rooms with no windows.
These drawings are nearly 80 years old. Look at this caricature. Do you see?
This detailed drawing depicts a humorous scene of the prison's wardens. Incredibly, prisoners likely on the edge of insanity were capable of social satire. A decade after these drawings were made, the ruthless penal colony was finally shuttered, with the last prisoners transferred out in 1953. But as Serge studies the ghostly remains of their graffiti, he discovers something astounding.
See, you have a boat here. You can see the masts and even the sails. And of course, it's a symbol of salvation. The idea, not the island. It represents the dream of escape.
And it proves that even though few people did escape from salvation, something about the human spirit here remained free.